Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Rangana Yashodanandana Brajadana Rangana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Rangana Yashodanandana Brajadana Rangana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Gaura Pimanande. Jai Vishupad Paramahamsa Parivradhakacharya Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhagavan Sharan Narvin Bhakti Raghava Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vidinda Ki
Jai.
Kandi BT Founder Sharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Harinam Sankirtan Ki
Jai.
Dhṛtarāṣṭra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki
Jai.
Dani Thai Gold of Himanande.
Hari Hari
All
Bol.
glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada Ki.
Jai Sri Prabhupada ki Jai.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakan Vitam Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Stuti Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Sarasatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jayam Mudirayet.
Tato Jaya Mudiraye.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta praya sabhadreshu
Nasta praya subhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Tamashloke
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhakti Bhakti
By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering the service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and a loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama
Idam Bhagavatam Nama
Puranam Brahma Samitam
Puranam Brahma Samitam
Uttama Shloka Charitam
Uttama Sloka Charitam
Chakara Bhagavan Rishi
Sakara Bhagavan Rishi
Nishreyasaya Lokasya
Vishreyasaya Lokasya
Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat.
Dhanyam Sasayanam Mahat.
The Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantharaj, is the literary, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva, It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara
Shri Advaita Gadadhara
Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama Hare Rama
Hare Rama Hare Rama
Rama Rama Hare Hare
Rama Rama Hare Hare
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Sarabhyai Namaha
Om Surabhyai Namaha
Om Sarabhyai Namaha
Om Surabhyai Namaha
Om
Surabhyai Namaha
Mukam Karoti Gom Gayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataram Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataram Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
That's why it's on the chilly side. It's only 13 degrees. So we are continuing from Canto number 1, chapter 13. Dhṛtarāṣṭra quits home. Text number 41. Okay. Nārada Uvacha
Nārada Uvacha
Ma Kanchana Shucho Rajan Yad Ishvara Vasam Jagat Lokaha Sapala Yasyeme Bahanti Balim Ishituhu Sa Samyunakti Bhutani Sa Eva Vyunakti Cha Nārada Uvacha Makanchana Sucho Rajan Yadishvara Vasam Loka Sapala Yasyeme Vahanti Balim Ishituhu Sa Samyunakti Bhutani Sa Eva Vyunakti Cha Nārada Uvacha Ma Kanchana Chorajan Yadishvara Vasam Jagat Loka Sapala Yasyeme Vahanti Balim Ishituhu Sa Samyunakti Bhutani Sa Eva Vyunakti Cha Nārada Uvacha Ma Kanchana Suchorajan Yadishvara Vasam Jagat
Yadishvara vasam jagat.
Loka sapala yashyeme.
Loka sapala yasveme.
Bahanti balim ishituhu.
Bhavanti bhavishitu.
Sa samyunakti bhutani.
Samyunakti bhutani.
Saiva viyunakti cha.
Deva yunakti cha.
Nārada Uvaca
Nārada Uvaca
Ma Kanchana Sucho Rajan
Ma Kanchana Sucho Rajan
Yadishvara Vasham Jagat
Yadishvara Vasham Jagat
Loka Sapalayasye Me
Loka Sapalayasye Me
Vahanti Balim Ishituhu
Vahanti Balim Ishituhu
Sasam Yunakti Bhutani
Sasam Yunakti Bhutani
Saeva Vyunakti Cha
Saiva Vinakti cha.
Nārada Uvaca
Nārada Uvaca
Kanchana Sucho Rajan
Makanchana Shicho Rajan
Yadishvara Vasam Jagat
Yadishvara Vasham Jagat
Loka Sapala Yasyeme
Loka Sapala Yasyeme
Vahanti Balim Ishituhu
Vahanti Balim Ishituhu
Samyukta Bhutani
Tasam Yunakti Bhutani
Saeva Vyunakti Cha
Saiva Vinakti cha.
Nārada Uvaca
Nārada Uvaca
Makanchana Sucho Rajan
Makanchana Shicho Rajan
Yadishvara Vasam Jagat
Yadishvara Vasham Jagat
Loka Sapala Yasyeme
Loka Sapala Yasyeme
Vahanti Balimi Shituhu
Vahanti Balimishituhu
Samyunakti Bhutani
Tasam Yunakti Bhutani
Eva Vinayukti Cha
Saiva Viyunakti cha. Nārada Uvaca
Nārada Uvaca.
Nārada said
Nārada said,
Ma never
never.
Kanchana
Kanchana.
by all means
By all means.
Shuchaha
Suchaha.
do you lament
Do you lament?
Rajan
Rajan.
O king
O king.
yet
Yes.
because
Because
Ishvara Vasham
Ishvara Vasam.
under the control of the Supreme Lord
Under the control of Supreme Lord.
Jagat
Jagat.
world
World.
Lokaha
Lokaha.
all living beings
All living beings.
Sapalaha
Sapalaha.
including their leaders
Including their leaders.
Yasya
Yasya.
whose
Whose.
Ime
Ime.
all these
All these.
Vahanti
Bhavanti.
do bear
Do bear.
Balim
Balim.
means of worship
Means of worship.
Ishituhu
Ishitu.
for being protected
Being protected.
Saha
Saha.
he
He.
Samyunakti
Samyunakti.
gets together
Gets together.
Bhutani
Bhutani.
all living beings
All living beings.
Saha
Saha.
he
He.
Eva
Eva.
also
Also.
Vyunakti
Vyunakti.
disperses
Disperses.
Cha
Cha.
and
And.
translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Raghava Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Sri Narada said, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and their leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them. Kindly repeat after me. Sri Narada said,
Sri Nārada said,
O pious king,
O pious king,
do not lament for anyone,
do not lament for anyone,
for everyone is under the control
for everyone is under the control
of the Supreme Lord.
of the Supreme Lord.
Therefore, all living beings
Therefore, all living beings
and their leaders
and their leaders
carry on worship
carry on worship
to be well protected.
to be well protected.
It is He only
It is He only
who brings them together
who brings them together
and disperses them.
and disperses them.
Purport: every living being, either in this material world or in the spiritual world, is under the control of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Beginning from Brahmaji, the leader of this universe, down to the insignificant ant, all are abiding by the order of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the constitutional position of the living being is subordinate under the control of the Lord. The foolish living being, especially man, artificially rebels against the law of the Supreme and thus becomes chastised as an asura or lawbreaker. A living being is placed in a particular position by the order of the Supreme Lord, and he is again shifted from that place by the order of the Supreme Lord or his authorized agents. Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Chandra, Maharaj Yudhishthira, or in modern history, Napoleon, Akbar, Alexander, Gandhi, Subhas, and Nehru are all servants of the Lord, and they're placed in and removed from their respective positions by the supreme will of the Lord. None of them is independent. Even though such men or leaders rebel so as not to recognize the supremacy of the Lord, they are put under still more rigorous laws of the material world by different miseries. Only the foolish man therefore says that there is no God. Maharaj Yudhishthira was being convinced of this naked truth because he was greatly overwhelmed by the sudden departure of his old uncles and aunt. Maharaj Yudhishthira was placed in that position according to his past deeds. He had already suffered or enjoyed the benefits accrued to him in the past, but due to his good luck, somehow or other, he had a good younger brother, Vidura, and by his instruction, he left to achieve salvation by closing all accounts in the material world. We have to learn how to close our accounts in the material world. Ordinarily, one cannot change the course of one's due happiness and distress by plan. Everyone has to accept them as they come under the subtle arrangement of kala, or invincible time. There is no use trying to counteract them. The best thing is, therefore, that one should endeavor to achieve salvation, and this prerogative is given only to man because of his developed condition of material activities and intelligence. Only for man are these different Vedic instructions for attainment of salvation during the human form of existence. Only for man are there different Vedic instructions for attainment of salvation during the human form of existence. One who misuses this opportunity of advanced intelligence is verily condemned and put into different types of miseries, either in this present life or in the future. That is the way the Supreme controls everyone. Translation again, Sri Narada said, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and their leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them. So one of the important points being explained here is that not only material nature is referred to as prakriti. Not only is material nature under the control ultimately of the Creator, aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam prabhartati iti madhva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanditaha. Not only material nature is under Krishna's stringent control. We hear about the stringent laws of material nature. Most people don't know the laws of material nature, and therefore they create their own laws. And because they create their own laws being imperfect, they make a mess of things. So not only is material nature prakriti, referred to as prakriti, but also the jiva is also prakriti. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains the two levels of prakriti, para prakriti, apara prakriti. Material nature is apara, inferior nature. And the jiva, although is also under the control of the Supreme Lord, and everything happens. That's why those who are enlightened, those who are seeing things through Shastra Chakshu, through the eyes of Shastra, as Krishna explains in the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Dehi nosminyata dehi komaram jovanam jara tata dehantara praptiya dhira satranam yati. One who is situated in proper knowledge remains in facing all kinds of what Prabhupada nicely refers to as reverses. We're constantly confronted with reverses. Reverses means we want to go this way and then something happens and we're forced to go the other way. Constant so-called obstacles, constant challenges are there in the material world. But those who are situated in knowledge will not become overwhelmed or overly disturbed by these constant ongoing changes, some of which are totally unexpected, and some of which are extremely difficult to understand. But we should know that, as the saying is also there in the Western world, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Supreme Lord. So everything is ordained. We come together, just like here, we're sitting in the Bhagavatam class. 1 week from now, we'll all be in different places, most of us, at least some of us. So this is all happening by the will of the Lord, by the sanction of the Lord. Everyone deserves what he gets. Although general people who are lacking in this knowledge and understanding, they become very disturbed and troubled, and and not understanding the the basic what is called tattvas that are explained, especially in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The influence of the time factor, how that's also explained in the Nectar of Devotion, that this body is a product of previous desires, unfulfilled material desires. Otherwise, if all of our material desires are extinguished, body. So this is a result of our previous mindset. And we are meant to actually, every single day, do things in such a way that even though we may not be conscious of it, that is preparing our next body, isn't it? So Prabhupada says, if you engage in material activities and activities of sense gratification on the body platform, then definitely we will get another material body. Because one can never fulfill one's material desires. But if we uh, in relation to the spirit soul, in relation to Krishna, then that means we are preparing our next body, which is spiritual body, and we will automatically get spiritual body. Actually, we already have spiritual body, but it is, we could say, inactive or dormant because of the state of consciousness that we're developing. So the key point actually is the state of consciousness. Be directly influenced by the knowledge that we are cultivating. So therefore, Vedic culture from the very beginning is introducing us to this, to proper, to higher levels of consciousness. Even nowadays, there's people understand the need to develop higher consciousness, but most people don't know. They speak about different energy levels, but unless one comes to the spiritual energy level, which brings one and introduces one ultimately to understand the cause of all causes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by which to regain our original position, one will tend to be constantly perturbed and in which will cause one ongoing and ever increasing distress in the material world. So here Nārada Muni is his instructions to that will be Maharaj as well as Sanjay, who are naturally both very closely, intimately connected. So that means that we have to build relationships. Relationships are natural. Relationships are an absolute necessity, and everyone in the material world is actually hankering for and working towards establishing relationships. We see this on Facebook, especially. We see it everywhere. But because those relationships are on the wrong level, they are on the body level, on the body platform. So those relationships are actually never permanent. The permanent relationships that we are actually hankering for, as will be revealed by Nārada Muni are on the transcendental, not only transcendental, but on the devotional level, devotional platform. Um, mm, mm. So this is the knowledge that is especially needed. This is the knowledge that is especially presented uh, in the Vedic literatures. Mm. The devotee is especially uh, meant to be always conscious, conscious of his dependency. Uh, this is the main problem in the material world. People think they are independent, think they can do whatever without understanding that there are very severe results awaiting that are generally unknown to most people. I mean, if people knew the results of their sinful activities, they would think twice, isn't it? So this uh, awakening of consciousness uh, is what can protect one from all of the uh, various levels of upheavals that constantly are taking place in the material world. And therefore, that's why the material world is um, not meant to be a happy place. It is a place of constant suffering. Uh, the three pangs of material nature, the threefold miseries of life are constantly inflicting all kinds of pains and suffering um, to those who are, uh, yeah, that word rebel is rebellious, isn't it? Rebels, or those who are uh, unlawful. What do we call unlawful people? Criminals. Criminals. So there's two types of criminals: those who don't follow the civil laws, and every country has different kinds of laws, man-made laws. One becomes criminal on that level, and most people are criminal without knowing it by not following because they don't know the, the, the laws of nature or the laws are built in this material creation. So it is especially, I think this is mentioned here also, the duty and responsibility, and it is only available and possible in the human form to begin understanding these subtle laws of nature. Krishna does everything very, very fine, very subtle, and most of us in the material world, because we are too gross, we miss what is fine. We are too gross in our activities, in our thinking, and therefore we are unable to capture, to understand, both in terms of spiritual laws as well as material laws of nature. Any thoughts on this? Yes. Yes.
Maharaj, everybody, most of the devotees want to visit temples.
Most of the devotees want to visit
All the devotees
temples.
want to visit temples, spend time with Lord.
Yes.
But for me, they want to spend more and more time. I was in Puri So I got some opportunity to spend almost close to 1 hour with the deities, you can say.
Yes.
1 hour,
Yes.
more than that, in very close vicinity.
Yes.
So for about 10 to 15, at least say about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I was able to keep my consciousness or speak to Lord, sing, whatever. But later I was totally like blank. I didn't know how I should react or how I should keep consciousness. I was completely blank.
Yes.
So
How to not be blank.
no, I mean, I don't know, 10 minutes or 15 minutes I was able to spend time with the Lord in the right, say, with loving mood, but later I'm unable to have any, like, the people with me are, they're able to stand peacefully, but for me, I'm not able to
Right.
have some discussion or anything with with the Lord.
Yes.
So how do I, able to, spend time with the Lord and deities is enable for me for very long decades.
Yes. One has to be more firmly established in the mode of goodness. Otherwise, the mind, that's the problem with all living entities in the material world. Our mind, by nature, the mind is very fickle. Chanchal, Chanchalam, Himana, Krishna. So it comes by practice. It comes by practice. That that very question Arjuna is asking, no? How to control the mind. Ultimately, it's a question of some people, most people in the Western world. Um, I had that experience one time on the Sunday feast. Most people in the Western world, because we're not trained, it's not the culture. Um, they can't um, they can't be with themselves more than a few seconds. They have to do something. They can't sit still at one place. I was, after the Sunday feast, there's prasadam in all the time. Um, there was one new guest was there, and we were just talking like it happens after the feast. For new people especially, they have different questions. So I was just sitting like we were sitting now, and it was kind of a long discussion. It went for about an hour or something. And then all of a sudden, he was always constantly, most people in the West, they can't sit like this for a long time or at all. You know. Then he suddenly dawned on him that I had been sitting like this without moving. He was constantly moving. And he says, how do you do that? how, how can you sit at one place for that long? So it's a question of practice. The same Krishna is telling by abhyasa and by vairagya, by detachment and by practice. This is how we learn to control the mind. So in the beginning, we can sit in front of the deities for maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes and be nicely focused, and then and somebody else, because he's more practiced, he can do it for an hour. Some yogis, they can do it for weeks, like you're mentioning. Yesterday we were having a discussion, about like yogis, they practice this breathing process, uh, and they can totally uh, be fixed in meditation. Or what they meditate on, that's something different, but they can sit in meditation for maybe hours and hours or days and days. So it's a practice. It's just practice. Um, of course, not only is it our own endeavor, the mercy of Krishna is also an important factor. So the idea is that the more we actually make the endeavor, then the more Krishna is inclined to give us his mercy so that we can fix our mind more at his lotus feet and be more fixed, not only in just, let's say, being conscious before the deity form of the Lord, but so that we can be more fixed also in our services as devotees. So it's a question of developed consciousness, which comes by both practice.
What should be our mood when we spend time with the Lord? In terms of the emotions and thought process?
Well, that is very individual. That is most most devotees don't spend, at least from my observations, don't spend hours and hours just in front of the deity. One can do that. I mean, Prabhupada mentions that if one is, for different reasons, unable to perform any kind of activity, it could just be, sitting in front of the deity, that is also pleasing to the Lord. But of course, one needs to practice how to utilize one's mind and reciting different prayers, chanting different bhajans. I mean, we see that like in temples, whenever there's kirtan melas, or even without kirtan melas, devotees can spend time glorifying the Lord, remembering the Lord. That's what our different Vaishnav acharyas who have composed so many wonderful bhajans. There's we were just talking, I think yesterday, the day before, some great saints and personalities composing, was it 20,000 bhajans? 32,000. Sorry.
From
not
every
20.
state they are there, huh? Even I think Namdev and Tukaram also composed a lot. I'm not sure. I think Namdev was initiated by Mahaprabhu. I think. Tukaram Maharaj was initiated by.
Well, I was just in Maharashtra recently. So visiting villages where they are. I was surprised actually. I was trying to get them to chant Hare Krishna, and because they sing the Tukaram bhajan. Yeah. So their sampradaya doesn't accept that Tukaram is initiated by Mahaprabhu. This is our understanding, and I think that became a big controversy a few years back. But he was, yeah. So personalities who are in that very elevated consciousness, they, by the mercy of the Lord, by their previous activities, they are able to be in that constant type of meditation mood and whatnot. That's explained actually in the Nectar of Devotion. These higher levels, these are levels of of bhava, isn't it? They will naturally come according to how one, that is the general process or procedure, how well one applies the principles of sadhana bhakti, then gradually one enters the level of raganuga bhakti, isn't it? where it just becomes more spontaneous to think of the Lord, to remember the Lord, to be totally at ease and comfortable in being in front of the deities for long periods of time like that. So it is not something that we can force. It it um, it it will come naturally. Just like that's a whole came to India and they would visit Vrindavan. Some of the devotees, of course, came in contact with some of the local Babajis. And, that system is there, especially, that they have a system of revealing the, what they call Siddha Pranali, so that you can know your spiritual identity. We know, we have basic knowledge that we are eternal servants of Krishna, but to know that we are having a particular uh, unique relationship with Krishna is a higher level of development. And Prabhupada explains that this comes naturally as one progresses or advances. And so this point is important for us to understand. Um, these uh, these more intense and higher levels of consciousness are meant to develop uh, based on how well and how attentively one applies the recommended process, and of course the mercy of the Vaishnavas and the mercy of Krishna is also an important factor. Yeah.
Maharaj, I have heard many times Prabhupada saying that one should engage 24 hours.
Yes.
One should come to that level.
Yes.
Slowly, that one should be engaged 24 hours.
Yes.
In devotion.
Correct.
So Maharaj, my question is, how to practice, like everybody is not in goodness. As you said, Brahmana is like quality, if he has, he can do. But what about, we talk about Varnas, passion, Kshatriyas and all. So how they can be
See,
24 hours?
what we need to understand is that when we speak about Varnashrama and the different Varnas, everyone, that is the meaning of Daiva Varnashrama. Regardless of where one is situated, Vaishnava, if one is actually applying the principles of Vaishnavism, one will automatically come to the mode of goodness regardless of his being in the category of Vaishya Varna or Shudra Varna. See, guna and karma. Chatur Varnam Mayasi Sam Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. So guna means quality. Karma means activity. So karma means externally, let's say for a non-devotee or a non-Vaishnava, the same activity in terms of Varna may be there for a non-Vaishnava and a Vaishnava, but the guna will be different. For a non-Vaishnava, his guna will be in terms of goodness, passion, and ignorance. But for a devotee, a Vaishnava, his karma, his activity may be externally fitting within one of these four, but his guna will be higher. So a Vaishnava is actually on the mode, is meant to be situated at least in the mode of goodness and above. So that's why when we have that proper understanding, we are externally accepting some particular activity that fits in the four varnas, but internally we are practicing Krishna consciousness. Internally, we are developing higher consciousness. Even somebody externally, as a Vaishnava, may be doing what we call Shudra activity. But because he's practicing the principles of Vaishnavism, bhakti, his guna, his consciousness will be either in the mode of goodness or above. So which means that actually everyone within that system, by taking up the process, the primary process of performing out all activities for pleasing Krishna, has the opportunity of becoming a self-realized soul. In the Asuric Varnashrama system, a Shudra is not self-realized. In the Vaishnav understanding, or in the Daiva Varnashrama system, then someone who is accepting or playing the role of Shudra can be self-realized soul. So therefore we don't judge, we should not judge one by the external activities that he's doing. We should judge one according to the consciousness in which he's performing those activities. So Prabhupada actually, he explains, which is very helpful to understand. He gave the example of a drama or a play. In the play, people accept to play a particular role. And when they come off stage, even when they're on stage, of course, the more they take on that role perfectly, then the audience will be appreciating more because they'll identify that person with the role that he's playing. So Prabhupada explains how for Vaishnavas, Varnashrama is like a play. We understand that, okay, in this life I'm playing the role of a Brahmana, I'm playing the role of a Kshatriya, like that. But within the internal understanding is that I'm Krishna, and I really have nothing to do with these temporary designations. So it's not to label people, because the whole philosophy is, to do away with designations, but we temporarily accept for the purpose of functioning in this material world within a social arrangement, within a social structure. That is often misunderstood by those who are rejecting Varnashrama. It's not that we want to label people, but temporarily, for society to properly function, somebody has to be a leader, somebody has to be a follower. Not everyone can be leaders. And so those are explained, and various training is also given for this type of leader, to become a Brahmana leader, or to become a Kshatriya leader, or to become a Vaishya leader. These are the natural leaders in society. Or to become a father leader, because father is also a leadership position, or mother also in terms of her children. But now we're not following the system, so we have invented all kinds of introduce things which are not. Somebody's hiding. Who's that? Hiding. He's getting the benefit of the sun. He's closer to the sun. The more we deviate, the more we neglect to follow the norm. Vedic culture is teaching us what is the norm. Norm means what is normal. When we don't follow the normal, means we are abnormal. Out of the norm. That's called abnormal. So we have the whole modern civilization is abnormal, and 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 the majority of individuals within that abnormal situation are also abnormal. There are other terms or names that could be used, but this is a gentle one.
Maharaj, pertaining to the consciousness, I have another question.
Yes.
Maharaj, sometimes we get a instruction or a purpose from a higher source,
Yes.
and while doing that process, like say be a Kshatriya, he might be forced to fight a war, which is his eternal duty to protect his people. He's doing on that process. He's undergoing certain consciousness because of the war engagements he's doing. So, is the purpose should be greater, or the consciousness should be greater? How do we understand this?
Mhm. The consciousness should be greater, or the purpose should be greater.
Or we have got a higher purpose, but we are not able to maintain the consciousness during the initially purpose we started that thing. How do we understand that?
Mm. Uh, yes, that is a difficult situation in which, especially nowadays, because in most countries in the world, um, people are forced in different activities which are not in keeping with dharma.
Hmm.
So the question is, should we follow first dharma, or should we follow according to the social condition or situation in which we are living? So, as you have cups also. I was wondering how you're going to hand this out. Ultimately, one should dharma. One may be put in situations where it may be very difficult to follow dharma, or maybe even impossible. Uh, but the idea is that possible one should follow uh, dharma, and sometimes one has to take radical decisions in order for that to happen. So there are many considerations. I mean, it's like, you know, one can say that grandfather Bhishmadev, why is he fighting against Krishna? He's a devotee of Krishna. Why is he fighting against the Pandavas? He's a well-wisher of the Pandavas. He had some, because he was being maintained by Dhṛtarāṣṭra. So therefore, he had obligation to fight on that side. So dharma is a very intricate, very deep subject matter, which in some cases is not so easy to decide. Generally, it's quite we could say clear cut, but in some instances it may not be so. For example, I mean, Prabhupada gives also the example of when Krishna, he asked Yudhisthira Maharaj to tell this lie to Dronacharya that Asvatthama is dead. Yudhisthira, I said, I never lied in my life. Why should I, tell a lie? The Prabhupada mentioned that this was actually, although we should not lie, but because Krishna was asking him. So in that situation, he should have followed orders of Krishna. Normally, we should follow. We should not lie. Uh, but when we're dealing with people who are lying, then that's a different story. Krishna broke the laws. Krishna is criticized sometimes. Uh, but, he told Arjuna, Karna's wheel, the chariot broke. He got down from his chariot. Krishna told Arjuna, shoot. Karna looked at him. Hey, what are you doing? I'm not in my chariot. I'm not, this is against dharma. So it's like there's some subtleties involved there. It's not like black and white, although the principles of dharma are there. But the same idea there. It's like Karna and others were not following the principles of dharma. So in dealing with such people, you are not obligated to follow also.
And when the law of land is against dharma,
When
the law of the land
the law of the land is against dharma, yes, yes, then we have to work towards establishing dharma.
Change the entire constitution.
Yeah, well,
That's what Prabhupada wanted.
well, yeah, to strive to establish, to revive Vedic culture means to replace adharma with dharma. And we will begin by this. This is one of the ways to actually help replace adharma,
That's what Prabhupada used. Stun bullet.
our secret weapon. Yes. Okay. Jai Dhṛtarāṣṭra Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Before we